Okay, morning, bright and shine, or bright and early, rise and shine. Bright and shine works. I'll stay with that. Anyways, we've got 4 games on tonight. It's the regular season, boys and girls. So I thought I'd do something a little bit different than what I normally do, with said previews and just add a little bit of extra information above what I normally would. To start things off, we have the Montreal Canadiens coming in to play against Toronto. Of course, last year's regular season records for the two teams: Montreal 29-40-13, Toronto 49-26-7. So when you look at it, it's really not that close. That being said, Kotkaniemi and Domi are debuting for the Montreal Canadiens. The Canadiens were 0-3-1 versus Toronto last year. Delarose is out of the lineup indefinitely with what they're calling a cardiac episode. We've seen this before, where a player who seems perfectly healthy and young and career ahead of them, and then something happens with their heart, and sometimes that's it. So all of my best wishes go to Jacob Delarose as he goes through what he's going through, and we'll see it how minor or major this could be. Andrew Shaw is expected to be in the lineup tonight, and Kotkaniemi is making his debut in the NHL. So that's pretty major. And then other newbies to the Montreal Canadiens from last year: Tatar, Armia, Domi, Plekanec. Plekanec technically is a newbie because he went over to Toronto to end the season last year. So technically, he was added during the offseason. And Ouellette. And Ouellette in the preseason looked like he's rejuvenated now that he's a member of the Montreal Canadiens. And Pekka, he projects as an extra skater. We'll see. Carey Price is likely the starter tonight. That hasn't been confirmed, but Price is starting. I mean, come on, it's Carey Price. It's first game of the year. It's got to be Carey Price. They start in Niemi, even though it's in Toronto. I think Montreal fans will probably be like, wait, what are they doing? This is Tavares' debut tonight for Toronto. This is the big thing. They went 4-0 versus Montreal last year, so I expect a lot of hoopla tonight. A ton. And for fans who may not want to hear about Toronto every 2 seconds, this may end up being a bad year. Because even on the channel here, which in part of the reason that it exists is because I never saw balanced reporting for all 31 teams. I will say that this year I think there will be a lot to talk about with Toronto. Making their NHL debuts tonight, Par Lindholm and Ozaganov. And I'm interested to see how Ozaganov does tonight for Toronto. He looked good in the preseason. And Ennis and Tavares are making their debuts as members of the Leafs. That's right, the names in brown are the rookies, the names in red are the guys debuting with brand new teams. So Ennis and Tavares are making their debuts, and of course, conspicuous by his absence is Willie Nylander. We don't know what's going on there yet, other than nothing. Freddie Anderson has to be starting. He just has to be. There's no way it won't be Freddie Anderson. All right, that being said, let us move on. Boston's playing Washington. Rask has been confirmed as starting. Holtby's been confirmed as starting. Again, I can't see them not starting their starters across the league tonight. Boston coming off a year where they were 50-20-12. Washington 49-26-7. So as they raise the banner tonight, the Capitals actually finished behind Boston in the overall standings last year. It's interesting. And yet, against Washington, Boston wasn't great last year. 0-2-1, meaning Washington was 3-0 versus Boston. So Boston doesn't have a great record traditionally against Washington, outside of the 70s and early 80s when everybody had a good record against Washington. Bergeron should play tonight for Boston, which is good news for Bruins fans, though Krug will be out. Vakanainen may very well make his debut tonight in the NHL as a rookie. No rookies on the Washington side of the ledger, but Nick Dowd, Dmitry Yaskin, and Magna might make their debuts as members of the Capitals. I would expect to see some surprises actually in the lineup now that we have surprises that have made the lineup. But Magna's probably going to be an extra guy. I can't see him being in the lineup. Yaskin, you never know. Dowd will be their fourth-line center. That's his spot now. Debuting for Boston could be Nordstrom, Wagner, Moore. Halak is highly unlikely unless something bad happens with Rask. And Kampfer is likely the extra defenseman, but it's Boston, so you just never know. Defenseman might get hurt during a warm-up. I really wish I was kidding about that. Boston's defensemen do tend to get injured quite a bit. So this is where we officially start the don't suck again campaign of the Washington Capitals. And I don't give them great odds on repeating, but I will say this. They haven't lost a lot from the team that won the Stanley Cup last year. Yeah, they lost Beagle. I can't see Beagle being the reason that, a year from now we're like, that's what it was. Just Jay Beagle. Jay Beagle made that big of a difference. Then he goes to Vancouver, scores 30 goals. I can't see it. I really can't see it. But it should be a good game tonight. I would be very surprised if the Capitals don't win this game. The Capitals cannot afford to have any kind of Stanley Cup hangover because there's going to be a lot of stiff competition, I think, even within their own division. They're the only team in action tonight from the Metro division, and you'll notice the Central has the night off. So, good to be them, I guess. All right, next up, Vancouver. The Vancouver Canucks at home against Calgary. Calgary was 37, 35, and 10 last year, 84 points. Vancouver 31, 40, and 11, which is 73 points. That's not as far apart as you would think they were when you listen to the reviews for that season and the previews for this year. But Calgary was 3-1 versus Vancouver. Vancouver was 1-3 versus Calgary. Nothing went to overtime last year. For Calgary, they've got Dubé making his debut as an NHLer, and Lindholm, Neal, Ryan, Zarnik, and Hannafin all making their debuts as Flames. And I would assume Mike Smith starts in that tonight because, well, I thought Riddick played well during the preseason. He's not the starter yet. Virtanen appears to be out for tonight's game for Vancouver. Pettersson, though, will be making his debut. And Beagle and Schaller will be playing their first games as members of the Canucks. Jacob Markstrom will be starting. I'd be surprised if he doesn't. There was an article yesterday on TSN. Jamie McLennan rated the top 31 starters in the NHL. And he put Vancouver at the bottom. And I saw that and I thought, it's weird because when I did a rating of tandems, I had Vancouver at, I think, 29th. And I was told I was being really harsh. Being really harsh to the Canucks. No. It's just in a league where goaltending is at a premium, the Canucks don't have anybody that looks like they're really a bona fide NHL starter. If Markstrom, let's say something happened, Markstrom ended up in Toronto, he's the backup to Anderson. If he's in Washington, he's the backup to Holtby. He'd back up Rask. He'd back up Carey Price. He'd back up Mike Smith. He'd back up John Gibson, and he'd back up Martin Jones. That's kind of what you look for when you're looking at who might be the best starter. Is, well, would he be the backup or the starter between these two goalies? And this is a big year for Smith now because there's some pressure on him to win. John Gillies has been sent back to the minors. But Gillies looks largely ready for NHL action. If Smith struggles out of the gate, there will be some who will say going to Gillies and Riddick might be a best solution for Calgary. That they might have their long-term solution in one of them as soon as this season. So Calgary can't really afford to struggle out of the gate, especially with all these guys they've added. The issue they're going to have is the teams that have added so many players usually do struggle a bit out of the gate. And for Vancouver fans, we've got Besser, Pettersson, and Horvat, but where does any of the rest of the offense come from? Berchi might be good for 40 points, but maybe 45 or 50. But depth of scoring is really going to be an issue for Vancouver, and the defense and the goal. It's going to be an interesting year. So this is a game Calgary really needs to win right out of the gate. Just like you've got to put those ones in your pocket. So that one's the late game that I'm going to be watching tonight. Also on tap, Anaheim, 44, 25, and 13 last season. They're in San Jose. The Sharks, 45, 27, and 10 last season. So very close records between these two. Anaheim was 1-1 and 2 versus San Jose. San Jose was 3-0 and 1 versus Anaheim. So notice how those records look quite different. That's what the overtime loss does for you. Makes it so San Jose was 3 games above 500 against Anaheim. Anaheim was 500 against San Jose. That's a very nice depiction of just how weird the whole system is. Making their NHL debuts tonight for Anaheim. Steele and Sherwood are a sure thing, it appears. Lundestrom and Comtois may very well. So they made the rosters. I can't see Anaheim keeping these guys up in the rafters watching, especially with Cachet out with a concussion now. I would expect one of these guys to step into that spot. Making their Anaheim debuts, Gibbons, Rowney, Auberg, Schuster, and Luke Shen may very well be the number 7 guy. He might be watching the game from above tonight. Gibson is highly likely to be the starter. I would be very surprised if they put Ryan Miller in as the starter. On the Anaheim side of things, Suomela, Chartier, and Simic will be making their NHL debuts tonight in all likelihood. Simic's borderline. Chartier and Suomela both appear to have made it, though. And Erik Karlsson, of course, is making his San Jose debut, which will be... Well, fans are excited, and rightfully so. This is a big year for San Jose. They're coming off of a season where they had 100 points, and they were in that almost contender spot, and then they get into the second round. They pushed Vegas, but they couldn't surpass Vegas. And now, by adding Karlsson, the idea is that now they should surpass Vegas and everybody else. And I have them as a likely first-place team in the division. I have Anaheim falling off. Part of the reason is because, you look at who they've added, who they're missing with injuries, how many rookies they'll be counting on, and expecting somewhat of a fallback, especially when the Flames appear to have gotten better. The Oilers appear to be ready for a bounce-back year of some sort. And it's weird because I'm betting on them to bounce back, but I'm not putting them in the playoffs. So that way nobody's happy with me. There's people who say, Edmonton's just as bad as last year. Why do you have them so high? And then Oilers fans say, we're going to make the playoffs. Why don't you have us in the playoffs? And the truth is because I again, when you're projecting what's going to happen the season after, it's tough because you're going to be looking at the season before and you're going to be going based on what happened the year before. Even though history shows, especially recent history, that the season before is not always an indicator of what's going to happen the year after, even with teams that are very similar. There was something I heard on TSN yesterday where they said, well, this team, and I can't remember which one it was that we're talking about, or Sportsnet, where they said, well, this team hasn't made enough changes. And I think it was Calgary that Bob McCown was saying, well, they haven't really, changed a whole lot. And I don't know, with so little change, I don't know if they're going to get better. Traditionally, teams that don't make many changes, you don't see a big turnaround the year after. But I can think of times where that has happened. I look at Colorado last year. They didn't actually make a ton of additions, and especially with their core, they just got better. So it does happen that way, and I hate to argue with Bob because, the reason he wears those glasses is because he takes those glasses off. He can kill you with his laser eyes. He is Cyclops. It's not a well-known fact. He is Cyclops from X-Men. That's why he wears the glasses all the time. So there you go. You've got division matchup, and two teams that are more rivals than might be expected, and you get to see Boston watching another team raise a Stanley Cup banner. That can inspire a team to play better in said game. All right, you're all set up for tonight's action. Let me know how you guys feel about these matchups tonight. Which names on the board that I have as potentially debuting that won't. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for all your support in the offseason. Thank you for your support in the preseason. Now it's the season. We're all set to go. 4 matchups tonight. Who you got? Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. It's kind of rude now, too. Just a little bit. And I'll talk to you guys again soon.